as part of the salivated over video tape that they showed, at the end, in order to bring home the dramatic moment, and don't forget, they hired James Goldston of ABC News, who is the guy who changed GMA into more of a salacious type morning program, effectively for ratings. But my point is, he's not a Brit Hume. They hired him to produce everything. And you look at this package and it ends with like the zinger, right? They've built up your emotion with the sound and blah, blah. And it ends with Trump, just voiceover of Trump saying these were peaceful people, these were great people, and there was love in the air. Okay, when you hear it after having watched them battle with police and storm the Capitol, you're like, oh my God, Trump. And I knew as soon as I heard it, I remembered this interview he gave to Maria Bartiromo 7 months after the fact. And I said to my team, could you please go back and check? Because I guarantee you, he was not talking about the mob in the Capitol, that he was talking about the people at his rally prior who were peaceful. Listen to what they did. And I was right. So here's the soundbite played. This is from their package, from their, extraordinary video that they played last night. Listen, watch.
They were peaceful people. These were great people. The crowd was unbelievable. And I mentioned the word love, the love in the air. I've never seen anything like it.
Look at that. Okay, so before we get to the full soundbite, so dishonest. They run that over an event that he was not talking about. Again, you would be fired. Your ass would be fired from any news organization, and you would be kicked out of court if you tried to submit that in a court of law. And here is more of the interview he gave to Maria Bartiromo on July 11th, 2021, for greater context.
And a tremendous number of people, the largest one I've ever spoken before, is called by people, by patriots. And they asked me if I'd speak, and I did, and it was a very mild-mannered speech, as I think has been. In fact, they just came out with a report in Congress, and they didn't mention my name, literally. But what they were complaining about, and the reason, in my opinion, you had over 1 million people there, which the press doesn't like to report at all, because it shows too much activity, too much spirit and faith and love. There was such love at that rally. You had over 1 million people there. They were there for one reason, the rigged election. They felt the election was rigged. That's why they were there. And they were peaceful people. These were great people. The crowd was unbelievable. And I mentioned the word love, the love in the air. I've never seen anything like it. And that's why they went to Washington.
Michael, so dishonest.
Well, this is what they did to Trump at Charlottesville, too. They used this clip of Trump after Charlottesville when he said there were very fine people on both sides of the issue of removing a Confederate statue. He immediately afterwards said, I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis. I'm not talking about the white nationalists. They should be condemned totally. But they clipped that out. And then what do? They put the clip of him talking about fine people over the images of neo-Nazis and white supremacists and all the rest of them. You knew this was going to be dishonest from the outset. There was a Democrat congressman from Mississippi who opened up the hearings, and he said, those people that I saw on January 6th, they remind me of the Ku Klux Klan and the white supremacists that I had seen in Mississippi. And obviously that's not an argument. He's not presenting any evidence of any connection between the Ku Klux Klan and the people who went to the Capitol. It was just so emotionally manipulative. And I just don't think it's really working. The Democrats have tried to pretend that the mob going into the Capitol is the worst assault on our sacred temple of democracy in history. And it's just not true. 1915, a Harvard professor set off a bomb in the Senate, blew up the Senate reception room. 1954, I believe it was, there was a group of Puerto Rican activists shot up the House of Representatives, injured 5 congressmen. 1971, Weather Underground, a radical leftist group, bombed the Capitol. 1983 or 1984, another leftist group, the Armed Resistance Unit, bombed the Capitol. By comparison to that, the horn hat guy dancing around the rotunda is child's play. It just doesn't rank. And furthermore, the reason this doesn't resonate with people is because we know that what happened on January 6th is not only not the worst insurrection in American history, it wasn't the worst insurrection of the year. That would have been BLM, which spent 8 months killing dozens of people. The January 6thers didn't kill anybody. BLM killed dozens of people, attacked multiple federal buildings, and burned down cities coast to coast. So ordinary Americans in the middle, frankly, I think even center left, and certainly the conservatives are watching this, and they're saying, look, you're presenting us with a highly sensationalized, largely fictional narrative, and we're just not going to buy that.
Yeah. 2,000 cops injured in the context of the BLM riots, and they want to look like they love cops by putting this one woman up to testify yesterday. And what she went through seemed highly unpleasant. I don't dispute that for one moment. And it was wrong. It was wrong what they did to them and what they did to those cops. But these Democrats acting like they care deeply about police officers after ginning up the crowds against them for an entire year plus. I mean, please, nobody believes that. They're using these cops for political purposes. But you raise a good point, because that's another lie they told last night about how 5 police officers, they've been pushing this. The news media has been pushing this. The Democrats have been pushing this. We heard it last night. You'll hear in this budded soundbite I'm about to play. The last person on there is Congressman Thompson, who continued the lie about 5 cops being killed either at the January 6th riot or dying because of the January 6th riot. And in particular, Brian Sicknick is one of them, but he's just one of the 5. Listen, we did put together a little SOT montage of the claims, which are untrue. Listen.
They beat a Capitol police officer to death with a fire extinguisher.
Officer Brian Sicknick died after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher during the fight.
He died at the age of 42 after he was bludgeoned with a fire extinguisher.
Literally criminals to break through cordon, go into the Capitol, kill a police officer.
I know that some of the witnesses from our first hearing are in the room with us, along with some of the family members, friends, and widows of the officers who lost their lives as a result of the attack.
As a result. Okay, now, Tucker addressed this last night. We've addressed it on our show. Glenn Greenwald's done great reporting on this. Brian Sicknick, according to the D.C. medical examiner, had not suffered any blunt force trauma. He died of a stroke in his office later. And by the way, no one's been charged in connection with Brian Sicknick's death. And as for the police officers who later committed suicide, that's what they're talking about with the 5 deceased police officers. The chief of the DC police has said publicly he has no idea whether those officers were driven to suicide by January 6th. Obviously, it's a very tough job, and it had been a very tough year for cops in America. Again, the blatant they're using these cops and their unfortunate deaths to try to make a political point.
They are, and the Democrats in Congress are still shamelessly doing it. The establishment media have since backed off it a little because it's just such a brazen lie. But even so, they would run the story on page A1. So you'd see Capitol rioters murder Capitol police officer Brian Sicknick. They hit him with a fire extinguisher. That would be the story on the front page. And then later on, they correct the story. But where do they correct it? On page Z1000. No, the tweet that says that the January 6thers killed the police officer gets a gazillion retweets. And then the correction that you get from the media is barely noticed. And so the propaganda has its effect. It's been so effective, in fact, that the Democrats in Congress right now can still continue to perpetuate that lie with a straight face. I never want to attribute to malice that which is equally explained by stupidity. And I don't think that the average IQ of this committee is particularly high. But if it is ignorance right now, someone should correct the record, because if it's an intentional lie, they are, as you say, abusing these cops and their families, exploiting their deaths for their own political purposes. It's a disgraceful and shameful thing, though in a year or 2 years where the Democrats have been consistently attacking cops, I guess it's no surprise.
There's only 1 week left for Genucel's summer clearance sale. Now, save over 60% on Genucel's most popular package at Genucel.com. Order today and get Genucel's Dark Spot Corrector free. The Genucel Dark Spot Corrector uses special peptides to visibly reduce the appearance of dark spots, age spots, and yes, even sunspots that summer leaves behind. Genucel has been family-owned and operated since day one. They know times are tough for all of us, and that's why they have not and will not raise their prices on their world world-class skincare. That's awesome. Respect and support them. The results are real. Millions of Americans are in love. Genucel guarantees results or your money back. And sign up for Genucel's best-in-class rewards program at checkout for an extra 10% off your order. Not to mention a complimentary gift set. Go to Genucel.com/MK60. That's GENUCEL.com/MK60. Enter MK60 at checkout for extra summer savings. And right now, every popular package includes an extra product too. Genucel.com/MK60. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.